Okay, let's talk about the downswing. Now, first of all, the downswing is going to be part of the power triangle method. And you understand that we've got the U-shaped swing, ignition is a cornerstone, and line of power. We have 3 points of that. But the downswing is something that I think has been misused so many times. I think I had a great friend tell me, his name was Brian Pavlet. Brian said, "Bobby, what do you think about?" And I said, "I don't know, Brian. I don't think about too much on the downswing." He says, "I just think about going the other way." And I said, you know, that's a pretty good point, because as humans, if we try to focus on one thing, we eliminate the other coordinates that work with it. So I liked Brian's thought. So let's work on the downswing here a second. Some people have said you want to drive your knees for greater distances or spin your hips or it shifts this way. I think something that's really important is this. When I walk, my arms swing my body. You notice how if I'm just kind of walking like this, you'll see that my arms swing my body. I think in the golf swing, that's probably something that I would like to consider, is that my arms help start the downswing. They get the club in a certain position. If it doesn't, if it's telling me that you got to drive your knees or your hips, which I think is a fault, that kind of tells me I walk like this. And I don't think you want to see me walking down the fairway like that. Let me give you a side view. That tells me my hip is going to lead my arm. I don't think that looks like a swing. So here's what we want to talk about on the downswing. We want to feel like, what does it take to go the other way? Remember, in our power triangle method, we're trying to get the U-shaped swing. We're trying to move this club face with the ignition down the line of power. So we can't really be thinking about certain techniques. We're trying to transfer all the energy through our 3 methods. So when I get to the top of the swing, notice if I move my body forward, the club's still behind me. I don't know where it is. We're trying to focus on where the club face is. If I try to feel like my knees move first, I don't know where the club is. So I like to feel like from the downswing, once we're up here, we've got to feel that club. We've got to know where it is. It's kind of like the hammer thrower in track. It's a lot like the discus thrower. We've got to get this thing out here in front of us. I don't want to be pulling this way. I don't want to be pulling on this grip. I want to know if this club head is moving as I move down. So here's what I want you to feel like you do. If I told you that you had to hit a wall as hard as possible, and it's standing right here in front of you, and you've got this golf club, and you've got to just beat that wall, and I say, take it back and do it, do you really think about if it's going to be your knees or your hips or your shoulder that's going to hit this wall? Or the only thing you're thinking about is how quickly can I move that golf club into that wall? So there's that thought process I want to eliminate. I want it to become a feel session on how you get that club back down. We're going to feel it get right back in front of us, because there's the wall, there's the view, there's the target. That's where we want the club head. In golf, my target is out there. I want to get this club head going at that target as fast as possible. So I don't want you to have too much thinking about the downswing, except let's just accelerate, let's ignite and get down on that U-shaped swing. Now, what it will do with you is this. On the downswing, something extremely important. If you and I were going to get into a fight, and this is an argument, and this is just kind of fun, and you're standing right here, and this is what I've got to do. For me to hit you here, I'm not going to go down and up and hit you. I'm going to turn back. Now, do I think about driving my hip or moving my shoulder to hit you? The only thing I'm thinking about is how quick I get it there. I don't know what my body just did. But I know one thing, I got to the impact area as quick as I could. That's very important. So on the downswing, here's what we want you to feel like. We're going to go the other way, and we're trying to go the other way as quickly as possible. And the other point I want to tell you is I said that I don't want to go quickly moving my body first. Again, let me show you if I was just going to have to hit this club face. I don't want to stand back here and move my body ahead of it and try to hit it. There's nothing there. That's deceleration. I want to be back here, boom. See the kinetic energy, see the power, see the physics on how we can get that explosion, how we can ignite that golf ball for you. Transition in the golf swing, something that's very important, but especially with the power triangle method that we're trying to teach you, with the U-shaped swing, with the line of power, and with ignition. Now I know the ignition has come earlier in this time, but what I want to show you is transition. How many times have you seen people get to the top of their swing and they start their downswing and then something funny happens? You're thinking, wow, they just look like a gear popped out. You see them and they either pop up or they jump or they twitch. This is what's because they've gotten the club in a V-shaped swing. It's not because they're in the U shape, because U shape is going to transition is really simple to use. Once we're at the top of the swing, as I said, we're going the other way. We're having our weight back on our right side. We don't want to be moving it to the left side. We want our weight on the right side. Look how that transition moved real easy right there, and I'm going to get into it more specifically. But notice, if I just stay back and let the club drop, it goes right down the line. If I try to move something forward, if I try to help something, watch what happens. You just saw right there that club came across the line. There's that spot, that transition, that hitch is what I call it. I think Ken Venturi used the term, it's got to get into the gathering, as he calls it. Hogan called it the slot. That's what I consider the transition. When the club is moved to the top of the swing, there's that slight pause people feel. Now the club has to change direction. If I have the club up here and my body changes directions, again, I've lost the feel of the club. I don't know where it is. So I want to make sure that club gets into the slot. This is the transition. This is the gathering, as Venturi says it. This is what a lot of people try to teach you is called lag. This is where you see the angle of the club right here. The angle from my forearm and my wrist that caused. Hogan called it dropping it in the slot. Venturi called it the gathering. This is the lag. What we're going to call this transition part is ignition. This is where we're turning on your golf swing. We have gotten the club to the top of the swing. We've got to allow it to catch back up with our body. So there's that dropping. This is where we ignite it. And you notice, see the lag, see the leverage we've created? This is the angle between my forearms and my wrist and the shaft of the club. If you'll notice, the more acute this is, the more power I'm storing. Those of you that have a problem about getting up here to the top and you move your body first, look what starts to happen. We lose the ignition that we had, that triangle of leverage. We've lost it. We want to ignite that club with as much angle as we can. Look how steep and acute this angle is. That will give me a lot of power at the bottom, and again, it allows the club to stay online. Remember, our second principle about the power triangle method is igniting your golf swing. So in that transition for ignition, we take the club with good width to the top of the swing, it comes down in an ignition position, and now it's full tilt to the target. Point of impact. Boy, this is what we know that separates the men from the boys and the women from the ladies. This is the inertial power point. All right, here's what we've got to get into. We've worked on everything, but what we're trying to get is something that I think is so unique with our power triangle method. We've already talked to you about the U-shaped swing. We've talked about igniting it, the ignition. Now we're talking about line of power, but point of impact. Remember, every shot you hit solid most of the time goes straight. I've never heard anybody say that was the most solid slice I've ever hit, or that hook felt terrific. No, this is the point of impact. What we want to make sure of is three things on point of impact. I'm going to review with you one more time though. We've got good width, we've got to the top of the swing, our weight's into the right side. Our ignition, we've got into this point. Now from here it's full tilt. I don't want my body moving forward. I want to make sure my body stays behind it. What is the only thing that was going to make the impact? Is club face. So from this angle here, all we do is we rotate and get that club face back to the ball square. Notice that my weight's a little bit behind the ball. My head is behind the ball. As a long driver, as somebody seeking power, this is where we have to be at impact. As a good player, you're going to find them on top of the ball. You're going to find their weight and their head in front of it or on top or just a little ahead. We don't want that in the U swing. We don't want to create this great ignition and blow it by moving ahead of it. We want to stay behind it. So as I've gotten behind the ball, I've got my weight to the right side, I've ignited. Now all I have to do is swing the club face as fast as possible. Look what happens. Notice that my arms are now getting longer. Look at the extension in both of my arms. I never want to be hitting a golf shot like this. I never want to be doing that. I'm looking for distance. I'm looking for consistency. I'm looking for the maximum launch that I can get. So from the downswing in our ignition position, we're trying to get our arms, look how extended they are. This is the point of impact. Notice that once I've hit this ball, that club is still going down the same line. If I move my body, look where the club moved away over here. Let me show you at this angle right here. If I don't stay behind that ball, if I don't stay back here, I move my body ahead. See how the club's coming across the line? You're my line of target. You're my line of power. Notice, again, this is the point of impact. I want my weight back. I want my head back. I want my arms extended. When I start the follow through, see how the club is now on the line of power. So at the point of impact, this is something that's very strategic. You want to feel like your weight is back. You want your head back. Something that's so much fun is to see is this. Once I'm back here, the world long drive champion, Jamie Sadlowski, I've taught with Jamie, I've taught with 5-time champion Jason Zubak. You can watch their swings. I want you to watch my head at the point of impact. They're here, they start forward, and all at once their head rotates back and they're here. Look at that power, look at the impact. Both arms are extended, my head's behind it, and the club is going down the line of power. So we've got to stay behind the ball, we've got to let our arms extend and keep our head behind the ball. Let's talk about the follow through. Now most things in life, once you start something, you want to have a good follow through. Well, it's the same thing in golf, except in the power triangle method, our halfway back mirrors our follow through. So the follow through is really the start of the third part of our power triangle method. That is, we have the U-shaped swing, we have ignition, and now we're going to have the line of power. So let me give you an example of this here. We've already talked about getting behind the ball, staying turned. We're getting the club face as fast as possible through that hitting area. Now my follow through is going to be an indication of my halfway back. So if you notice I'm halfway back here, this club should after impact be on our line of power. So here we go. I've taken the club back. I've gotten into the ignition position. We've got to the power, we've gotten to the impact position now. Here's where we go on the follow through. Notice that I'm still a little bit on my right side. My right hip is starting to close the door for me to hit this ball longer. I'm on my right ball of my right foot. I'm pushing. I'm allowing myself to shift and push that ball. I am trying to give it as much snap and speed as possible. I'm not worried about turning around my body. I think this is where we get in trouble, is once people have hit the ball, they think they're finished and they don't have to do anything else. They have a low follow through. Their finish is low and not down the line of power. We want to keep this club as long as possible to ignite and get on the line of power. So if my head is back, my shoulders are back, and I'm closing the door with my right hip, that club can stay on that line of power. Notice how where we are. That's a little bit left of my target. You know why that's left of my target? Something we talked about earlier. This is the bottom of my swing. The further I move the ball forward, the more the club closes. The further I move it back, the more it opens. So once I've hit this is the bottom of my swing. Again, watch where I'm at. Here's my point of impact. Now comes the line of power. I'm pushing off that right toe. The right hip is closing. See how that club is still going down the line, but it's a little bit closed? The reason it's closed is because it's past the point of impact. It's okay. Do not try to hang on that club. Do not let it chase your body. Let that club head release. As we get to here, you will notice this. Now again, if I can get you in the point of impact, then your follow through is going to be down the line of power. But it mirrors. Remember, our follow through mirrors our takeaway. This was halfway back. There's our follow through. See how it's working the same way? It's very important that you can do that. A great drill, if you want to do that, is just to see, boom, boom. That club is going down the line of power. When we put some rotation and some weight shift in it, same thing happens. Look at my right hip. Look how I'm pushing off. My head is still behind the ball. My arms are long and extended, and I'm able to take the club down the line of power. Hey, we got to get to finish. Something that's probably really exciting to me about the golf swing, because there's so many points that I can tell you to check yourself to see if you're doing the power triangle method. You know, one thing about it is we've gotten the line of power. We just talked about this. But my finish is going to tell me it'll mirror just the same thing I had in my backswing. Let me give you just an overall real quick. Remember, we're starting off with the club at the bottom of our swing. We have good width going back. We're taking the club and keeping it wide away from us. Here's where we start to ignite it. But see where my weight is right now? I can pick up my left foot and stand on my right one. That tells me I'm in deep into the right side. See how I can do this right here? This is going to tell you something about mirroring the finish. But once I've gotten up here, now I'm going to ignite. Now we're staying behind the ball at the point of impact. We're going down to the follow through. Now as we get to finish, look where I'm at. I've got the club over my left shoulder. Where was the club when I started off on my backswing? It's over my right shoulder. It's a perfect mirror of going over my left shoulder. Let me show you from this direction. I've gotten it over my right shoulder. Once I get to finish, look where it is, over my left shoulder. Perfect mirror of my backswing. The other thing is I can pick up my right foot and stand on my left. That's telling me my weight has transferred again. Remember, we have to do this. We are mirroring our backswing with our follow through. That's a very good secret of the U-shaped swing. Everything is balanced. It goes the same way both times. So to get to finish, I want to give you a good, quick, natural example right here. As I've set up, I've gotten big into the right side. I'm gonna ignite my swing. Watch this. With that much speed, I am still in balance. Did you notice that? Here's my finish, that club over my left shoulder. It's not down low. A lot of you amateurs have a problem. Even some of the pros do it. I'm sorry. You'll have a problem. Once you finish, you think I've hit the ball and I'm done. It's low over here. You're trying to hang on to it and you're this way. This is what I call the chicken wing. This is a power leak. Some of you have no idea that when you fire that left elbow out, you can still go down the line of power, but that's a parachute. That's a decelerator. That will not let you get to finish. We want that club head to get all the way through the ball. That left elbow folds down. You notice that my right elbow folds. Look at the angle of my right elbow on my top of my swing. Look at the angle of my left elbow on the follow through and on the top of my finish. This is what we've got to have. Everything is congruent. If I was going to do it just like a baseball player, notice what my same thing happens. I go to the right, swing it, my weight goes to the left. You notice how the club and the finish, the backswing and the finish are exactly the same. This is what we want to do with the line of power. This is our third point. That line of power gets it to a finish that's in balance. One thing that's a good checkpoint on the finish and will distinguish you from an amateur to a pro is something that the 4 Ps that Brian Pavlett and I came up with. And remember, this will also give you a point of reference if you're doing the power triangle method. But here it goes, the 4 Ps. Are you ready? As you finish that swing, you pause, you pose, you point, you pull that club. Now you're a power driver of the ball. So what I've just exposed you to is the power triangle method, something that's brand new, that's never been created before. This is what I've done. I am 55 years old now with 3 world titles. I'm driving the ball further than I ever have. And this is an old classic swing, the U-shaped swing, the ignition, the line of power. These are our 3 components of the power triangle method. It is much more efficient, it's easier on your muscles. For those of you that have some physical conditions that won't allow you to make the old V-shaped swing, which we don't want to have anymore, this is going to give you a new life in golf. Remember, we went over a neutral grip. We talked about the proper ball position. We always were talking about tension in the grip. The things that we talked about were the takeaway, where we ignite, which is the ignition to transition. We talked about the top of the swing. We've talked about point of impact, which is so good because that puts us on the line of power. U-shaped is more of a swing that's going down the line. We keep the club on line longer, as opposed to the V-shaped swing where we're setting the club too early and we don't have any transition. U-shaped gives you freedom. As I swing towards you, you're going to notice this is more of a science, not a violence. The V-shaped swing can get you some violence in your body. That's where the tissues are tearing. That's where the bones are grinding. That's where you will have some pain. For people that are in my age group, the U-shaped swing is going to set you free. So again, one point of it. Let me give you the first 3. U-shaped swing, ignition, line of power. U-shaped swing is what we're going to be talking about down the line. The ignition is, once we get behind the ball, we're letting it transition into the ignition. This is a very easy move when you're considering we're just doing it with our arms. Remember, we're creating that lag. And then of course, at impact, we're going down that line of power. Notice that there's no stress anywhere on my body when I'm on the line of power. No stress at all, and that finish is much easier. See, I can pick up my right leg. I'm easy on the finish. So the power triangle method is years of experience of teaching and being taught and playing with the greatest players in the world and taking bits and pieces of all of what they've told me and what I've learned, and now I'm giving it to you.